And we're going to be recording this, so we'll decide which one is the better recording, the one we did last Thursday or today, and that's the one we'll put on the website. So I appreciate everybody joining. And if everybody for now can mute yourself, and you do that in the lower left-hand corner of the Zoom window, and where you see my picture down there, there'll be a little icon of a microphone, and you can just click mute, and that will mute you. If you have any questions and all later on, we can just unmute yourself and you can ask those. I'm going to be monitoring the chat box. So if you have a question as Pam is talking, you can put that in the chat box and I'll either answer it. And if I can't answer it, we'll wait till Pam's done and then she can answer it for us. So feel free to use that chat box during the presentation this morning. We're going to talk about the plan of work that's coming up. You'll be able to see where it's located on the website, and then Pam will share with you all of the process, the templates you can use, the logic models that are available, and all that as she goes through her presentation. I'm going to share my screen right now and go to my browser here and go to the ANR website. Hang on just a minute. I got to move some things around real quick. Okay, here we go. You see that? Hopefully you can see the ANR website on the screen. Is that what you see?
Yes.
Okay, good. On that page, if you scroll down to where it says Discover Your Resources, you'll see the Plan of Work box there. You can just click on it, and it takes you to the Plan of Work page. And on that page, it's broken up into the major program areas. You click on those, it goes down the page to show you the example logic models that Pam has put together with input from specialists, as well as some sample evaluations and some sample success stories for each of those areas. Also, Pam's going to talk to you, and I linked here the Plan of Work templates. There's one that's an expanded version that you can use too if you want to. The Plan of Work strategic initiatives are the major program areas with the program indicators listed under those, and Pam will share those with you and show you what the colors mean in that particular document. And then the slide deck that Pam is going to use this morning, we have it linked here. So if you want to download the PDF of what she's presenting, you'll have that available as you start with your planning process. So Pam, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to let you share your screen and turn it over to you.
Okay. Let me put it in presentation mode here. It says usually starts a year ahead when we do the with the assistant directors and specialists working together. I did it a little bit different instead. We wanted to see what were your concerns and what you needed to do to make it a little bit easier. So when one of the specialists, I showed them what you have to do on a daily basis when you're submitting information into KERS. And so with that, they have tried to reduce the number of indicators and made the indicators a little bit easier to understand was our goal. So right now is when you should be working on your plan of work. They need to be submitted to the district directors before they can be entered into KERS. You also probably want to run them past your extension council and advisory council members to get some of their input as you're developing that plan of work. The KERS window to submit your plan of work opens up on April 1st, but it closes on June 30th. And whenever you give the materials to the district directors, they need to have it back to you no later than June 15th. But keep in mind, you're going to have vacations that you're wanting to take, camp dates are going to be there, prepping for county fair. So make sure you allow yourself plenty of time to do that. The other thing you want to really be conscious of is the community or the county community assessment information. There's 5 different priority areas, and I'm going to show you how that sort of could tie into your plans of work as you revise or create new plans of work this year. As I mentioned, you want to talk to your council members. A plan of work, the best ones, I think, really can include all the agents who are in your office where you work together. And for an average county with 3 agents, 4 to 6 plans of work are plenty. I recently visited with some new agents in a county with and they had 11 plans of work. And so it's just overpowering to see so much what you're being expected to do. So sort of keep it relevant and realistic that you're going to be able to achieve these things that you set out in your plan of work. You may want to print out your county priorities and see how you can tie them into your plan of work as you go. Some of you have seen me do logic model training. I have another logic model training coming up on March 4th, next Wednesday, if you're interested in participating in that. But that logic model, which is what I've given you samples of, tied directly into the plan of work form that you're going to be filling out. So the plan of work form is going to ask you about your situation. And when I think of situation, I think of what does it look like in your county right now. A great place for ag and horticulture to look at is the 2017 Census of Agriculture, which will give you county-specific data. And you'll see that when I show you some sample success stories, because that could be what you write in the plan of work, maybe the beginning of your success stories for those areas related to agriculture and horticulture. Your long-term outcomes, and I'll show you those on the model too, but those long-term outcomes actually could be some of those priorities from that community assessment that you have in there. And then your intermediate, and when I talk about long-term outcomes, we're talking about social, economic, environmental, and civic outcomes that impact your community. The intermediate ones are practices and behaviors that your clients have exhibited or adopted. And the initial outcome is that what they learned when you presented the program or presented the information to them. So with that, let's look at a logic model. And this one, for example, is one on hemp. The long-term logic model here presents you with most all of these are economic information that would be that long-term outcome. We've included the family and consumer science people here because they're going to be dealing with things such as being advocates for hemp production and hemp products, and understanding the difference between industrial hemp and marijuana, which comes up in some counties and things like that. So there's the team of people there for your resources. But here's your long-term outcomes that would be there. When we get to the intermediate and the initial outcomes, being a former teacher, I always go back to Bloom's taxonomy, and it's a great way to help differentiate between the different levels and to take you to higher levels. So if you're doing a program based, a workshop or a program, a lot of times all you're going to be doing is teaching knowledge and understanding. So if the verbs in those categories, excuse me, of Bloom's appear, then it's an initial outcome. If it's on the top of the pyramid or in these columns, those are great verbs to use when you're showing practice or behavior change. So if you use those verbs, it makes it into an intermediate outcome. So when you get ready to write success stories, I keep this chart in front of me right by my desk, by my computer, so that I can refer to it, because you want to try to take your success stories up to higher levels, because when you do your performance evaluation, quite often your score or the level of success stories that you write influence your performance evaluation. So when you look at the indicators, and we don't have the numbers for these yet, Ken Jones and Evelyn will be putting numbers to all of these, but I've color coded them for you. So at least on ours, it's going to be color coded. And the yellow ones are initial outcomes. Notice in this example here, when we did the Eastern ANR update, one of the questions was, where would I put safety programs or disaster preparedness programs? So we added that verbiage into that fourth initial outcome for you. So that will be important, because I know a lot of you need a place to report that. One of the other comments I got was that we need general places to put things. Well, those yellow ones, those initial ones, are the real general ones for you to put information in. Basically, it's just they're gaining knowledge on different parts of that topic. The intermediate ones are where they're actually doing a practice or a behavior, and then those in blue are the long-term outcomes for you. And a lot of you are doing long-term outcomes, but you don't word it that way, and so be sure to, when you rate your success story as you write it, that you look at these and try to make sure you're at the right level. One of the things that's new this year is we've developed a list of indicators that are for agriculture and extension leadership. In the past, FCS has had leadership as well as 4-H, and then community and economic development, but they didn't really go with all the agriculture. It wasn't a real clear piece to it. So this is new, and this has been added for you to have an area for leadership under agriculture. So when we talk about evaluation on that plan of work template, they're going to be asking you what your outcomes are, what the indicators are, what method you're going to use, in your timeline that you're going to use. So when we look at that logic model, and this is an example of the equine, my outcomes, I'm going to take initial outcomes that are intermediate outcomes that I want to accomplish when I work with my clients. And maybe these are the 4 things that I want to concentrate on this year that has to do with soil, forage, and rotation and grazing type issues. So my indicator from that list is the number of equine owners or operators who adopted a best practice to improve or maintain animal nutrition. So that's an intermediate outcome. And you would do it with a follow-up evaluation and the timeline. And I've sent all these out to agents to review before we posted them. And one of the suggestions for equine was May would be a good time of year to do an equine evaluation. So then they're going to ask you about the learning opportunities. So they're asking you about who your audience is, what project or activity are you going to do, what curriculum or resources or inputs, which is your resources, are you going to use, and what date are you going to do them in. And so this may be part of that plan of work that you update annually, because you can update it every year in between May and June. But here again, this year it's your district directors. Next year it'll be your area directors need to approve those before they're posted or changed. So on that logic model, going back to that equine example, that I'm using livestock owners, but I'm more specific. I'm going to do workshop clinics and demonstrations and farm visits, and it's going to be for my business clients who would be breeding, boarding, training, and sales people would be my learning experiences and who I'm working on. So when they talk about the type of evaluation you use, short-term or initial evaluations are those that you do right during or after you do your presentation. So I'm one to try to avoid paper pencil things as much as possible because we don't want to over survey them, even though I'm going to show you all these surveys that I made. But think about how you can engage them in the program to do that. Maybe a discussion, a debate, a hands-on activity that you do. You may do quizzes or competitions, but a great way is photography. And I thought I saw DJ on this training, but that's a picture from one of his environmental camps. And the teachers who came to that environmental camp provided him with the photos that sort of verified what they were doing, and you can see that the students are doing observation, they're doing grafting and logging and journaling as part of that initial outcome. If you want to wait till the end of the program, there's a pre-post retrospective evaluation, and I'll show it to you here at the end. But it's on the Program and Staff Development website, and you can download it into Word and type into it and create it to be your own, which makes it really easy. If you're doing a series of classes, then you may want to do sort of a quick evaluation when you start the second class and ask what they did since they were there at the previous class. And then it could be just as simple as the example I put there at the bottom. You know, what were the key things that you're taking away with you tonight after this program? What's still in your mind that you would need more information about? And what do you think you understand and you're going to apply or use when you get back home? So it could be really simple, or you could make it more complex. So what I've done is prepared sample evaluations for you to use for every major program area. So this is an example of the one from commercial horticulture. Now you would want to put this on UK letterhead to identify yourselves, and it's all going to be, they're available in Word documents, and we're also creating them on Qualtrics, because most all of them should be able to be done in maybe 5 to 10 minutes at the most that it would take somebody to do it. And you may not want to use all the questions that are on it. And these are really sort of designed as like once a year follow-up for everything that you've done. So if I was a horticulture agent working with commercial horticulture people and growers, I might want to send this out in November after the season, the farmers markets have closed and the season is over. But on each one of them, some things that are unique or common in all of them is I usually start off with a question for you of all the different ways that they learned or got information from you. Because you know how many people attended your workshops and conferences, and you know how many newsletters you sent out. But there may be other things, such as this one, we added the Veg IPM hotline on there. And maybe when they see this on there, they're not aware of that hotline and they will use it in the future. Then there's an area for diagnostic testing. That's one of the other new places for you to report. And what she's done is she's added soil as medium testing. When you do your reporting, you're going to put it under soil testing, but she wanted to break that out separate for those who are using high tunnels and greenhouses, as well as adding other things. And this would be put into plant diseases when you report it. But the advantage of this question up here with the all the different ways that they received information from Extension is that you can use that for your affirmative action report that show that you've tried to reach all the people in your county by presenting information or making information available in all those different ways. Then over here, you'll see the different areas. So we've tried to put every major program area that relates to that major program on that evaluation tool. And so, for example, water quality and soil health appears in almost every one of the evaluations. And when I sent this out to agents, one of the comments back is, I know what best practices in soil quality and soil health are, but I'm not sure my client knows. And these are program indicators, so it makes sense that they may not understand it. So if I was going to use this, if I wanted to get some information on water quality or soil health, I might not use what's there, but actually list different practices that I have recommended or suggested over the past years to see which ones they have done. But when I get ready to report it on CURS, I'm going to put it under that indicator. So let me give you an example of that. On the beef farm management evaluation, Kenny Burdine wanted to add these 5 outcomes to the evaluation. So they all relate to marketing. So if anyone said yes to any of the three top ones that are in yellow, I would report that into marketing. If they said yes to those lower two that were in yellow, then I would report that under the people who increased their profits, reduced expenses, or reduced their risk. So that's an example of how you can customize these sample evaluations to make it more understandable to your clients, or to address specific practices that you've been promoting for that year. I wouldn't send out 15 of these each year. So if I'm an agent in my county, commercial horticulture and beef are the two major areas of agriculture, then I might use those two at different times of the year. But I'm not going to do all of them. I'm only going to use maybe the two biggest programs in my county, what I want to do annual follow-ups on. Or maybe it's a new program that you're introducing that you want to do an annual follow-up on. So I mentioned that I've created sample success stories. A success story follows the same idea as the logic model and your plan of work, with your situation statement, your partners if it's applicable, your target audience, and here again you want to be as specific as possible with your target audience. Did you reach underserved audiences? What was the age range, the gender? How are they different, or are they new extension clients? That's another area to think about when you're defining who your target audience is. Then your educational response is the activity that you did, and then your outcomes, as we mentioned, were initial, intermediate, and long-term. So, for example, the sample beef success story is going to start out using information from the 2017 Census of Agriculture, where you have how many acres in your county are pasture lands, how much of your economy comes from livestock, and what percentage of that might be from beef cattle. Then over the years, these are all the different things that you did to promote or help beef producers by sharing information, and that you provided diagnostic testing, and you do your annual survey, and you'll see this big list of things where it talks about where the beef specialist narrowed it down to 4 outcomes, intermediate outcomes for their area. And would I want to list all of this information on my success story? Probably not. I'm going to take the top 2 or 3 out of that list that I want to promote there. Then at the bottom, I've given you another statement that transitions into a long-term outcome. So did they minimize the environmental impact? You might do that. It can make some assumptions there because they had their soil tested, they applied chemicals in the chemicals that were recommended in the soil analysis, and they applied them correctly. So that would be minimizing environmental impact. And then the sustainability of agriculture is influenced by improving their equipment and facilities, profits, or are they a leader? Did you have some percentage of your people who were leaders there for you? And then I always think it's great if you can get a quote either from a client or from one of your community partners to end your success story. Now, there's some exceptions to the rule of what I just said. Water quality and chemical management are included in all the ag production evaluations for you, and they have sample evaluations and sample success stories simply for water quality and chemical management. So you can have them separate, or you can include them in other areas. It's up to you. The local foods information are part of the evaluation. We've got a logic model and sample success story for you, but the evaluation part is under commercial horticulture. Farm management and ag leadership, as I mentioned earlier, are part of every major program evaluation, but they have not created a logic model for you. That may still appear later on down the road, but it's not available at this time. Rick Durham has really listen to you and cut back on the number of indicators for master gardeners. So there you'll see a logic model and his master gardener evaluation tool. And then I'm going to talk a little bit more here about forestry and community gardens and horticulture therapy. Billy Thomas and his crew really looked over and totally revamped what they had. When we met for the ANR update, you know, I had some proposed ideas, but they've gone back and made it even simpler than that. So they've actually developed 3 different sets of information. Wildlife habitat and damage is one, and then forest education, health, and management and utilization is the other one. So this is where mushrooms and maple syrup and non-timber products would fall under that category. So Billy has put together, his logic model will look a little different from the one I have, as well as his evaluation tool, but they're good tools that he's put together. Under community gardens and horticulture therapy, over the past few years, I've worked with a lot of agents, especially Bethany Pratt and Sarah Stoltz up in Campbell County, because of the work that they've been doing with rehab centers and detention centers. And I'm going to show you those materials, but one of the resources I've given you is before you agree to do a community garden, just a sort of a little checklist to go through and what to discuss before you commit yourself to such a program. And then the evaluation that comes with it is more for your community partner, like the director of the senior center, the school administration, or teachers, or the rehab activities coordinator or their staff to complete, because most of the skills are going to be the home and consumer horticulture skills, but you want to be able to find out when you do this evaluation of how it's improved the client's health, and you're not asking the client directly. So it all ties into this community assessment. So one of the major areas is jobs and infrastructure. So if you use that as a way to design your plans of work in your county, you would include your farm management outcomes as well as your leadership outcomes in that area. When we talk about agriculture, of course, almost everything that you do is going to can fall under that area. But my suggestion would be to move environment and horticulture over to health and wellness is a place to put it instead, because horticulture is helping bring more access to fruits and vegetables, which we know reduces chronic disease. Diagnostic testing and environment would fall under health and wellness, as well as that one indicator from farm management that discusses safety and disaster preparedness. When we look at 4-H, or for youth and families, all the 4-H activities would be included in that area. And then community vitality would be where you would put your leadership pieces, master gardeners, master cattlemen, other master programs. And then something I didn't think about the other day when we did this was local foods. So that helps build pride in the community with your local foods programs. So they could go under there. So here again, we've got I've got a timeline for you, and on the PowerPoint, it has links to all the different resources that are on the program and staff development site, but Craig's already set that aside to make it easy to find on the ag website. And the community assessment you should be able to find or have access to as well. So just to sort of review, but I really want to thank agents, because it started out with 1 and 2 agents who were willing to take time to sit down with me and walk me through their day and show me what you all are doing with reporting. A lot of this information we bounced off of Craig's advisory committee that he works with. I've gone to district meetings and had time to sit with the ag agents who were able to be very open and honest and blunt about some of the things that we are dealing with. So let me move that off. We're going to open it up to questions here in a minute. Well, I guess I should go ahead and show you. Ken and I are both available to help you with this, as well as your district directors and the regional directors and the specialists. I let people know I retire next week, but I'm going to be doing a 20% post-retirement for the next 6 months. So if you need help, we can either do it on video chat, or I can come by and visit you with your agents when it works for you. So let me put that aside and pull up the different programs here for you. So this is what the indicators are. So we have farm management, economics, and policy, and I pointed out the one about safety for you. Ag and extension leadership and development. And under crops, we have grains, tobacco, hemp, forage, and then we have a new area called diagnostic testing and identification. So the questions relate to, did they have it tested, and did they apply the test? So if you know everybody who did a soil sample in your county, you could very easily make sure that they get an evaluation at the end of the year and find out if they followed the directions in that. And so we also have hay testing, plant identification, pest identification, plant disease identification, and animal disease. So you'll capture some of those walk-in questions that you get. Under environment, we have integrated pest management, chemical management, pollinators, soil and water and soil quality and conservation, commercial horticulture. And notice you've got some large general areas for those things that you weren't sure where to put them. Oops. Oh, under commercial horticulture, there's local food systems. Then we have home and consumer horticulture, community gardens and horticulture therapy, and master gardeners. And you can see that he really shortened the list on that. Under forest systems, we have the wildlife habitat and damage management education, and the forest health and health management and utilization. And then aquaculture will come under small farms, but you have beef, equine, poultry and small flocks is going to come under small farms as well. Small ruminants, and swine. So under small farms, there's aquaculture, beekeeping, poultry, small flocks, small farm diversification, and small farm management. Now, the logic models and the evaluation tools are coming from KSU for everything under small farms. So those are not available to you at this time, but we hope they get them completed and up to you as soon as possible. Okay, so let me see what I've got here. Go to Word. Okay, so here's that sample evaluation piece, the template that we mentioned earlier. Here is that pre-post or retrospective sample that you can use as a follow-up at the end of a program. You can see this one I used as a sample where the 3 things I wanted them to know from my program. So I would keep that to 3 or 4 maximum, and you can add lines to it when you just tab at the end and create additional lines. And then this probably has too many behavior changes, but you usually want to have 2, maybe 3 behavior changes. And the advantage of having this at the end of your presentation is to sort of remind them what you want them to do when they go home. And then ask satisfaction questions about you as a presenter. Okay, this is for the community garden piece. This is the sort of the checklist to think about when you're going to plan a community garden. So are you doing it for food production? So I'm thinking the Wayne County one, school farm there. Over in Ashland, Lori does her things with the prisoners, and they earn a certification. They're acquiring job skills and restoring their dignity is the purpose of that garden. Think about who's going to be working in the garden, and ask questions about things that you should know about them. Example might be with Wayne over in Jefferson County. He was working with students who were visually impaired, so he needed to make accommodations for that. Think about where it's going to be located. Not always the place that they may plan to put the garden may not be the best location. The kind of garden it's going to be, who's going to maintain the garden, because that's not your job, is to garden for them. You want them to take ownership, and think about all the different chores that need to be done in that garden, who's going to be liable. What exactly is going to be planted in the garden, what's it going to be used for, to give you some ideas there. How much time it's going to be allotted to it, how many people are going to participate in the program, and can you get photo releases for the people who are going to be in there, so you can use that as part of your evaluation and marketing. So the evaluation tool for that one then is really, as I mentioned here and mentioned before, it was really deemed to go to the administration or staff of that facility. And you want to look at what they're dealing with. So if I'm in a senior facility, they've probably been through a life change, they've become institutionalized versus living independently, and they may be dealing with the loss of a loved one. So, what kind of people are you working with here? Then you want to think about what they're doing in the garden. But over here is one of the things is and I've given you a whole list, and this is developed by some of the horticulture therapy people, is where we've pulled this information from. I would pick 2 or 3 things that you want to try to measure when it comes to their physical improvement by being in the garden. Down here, it's looking at their psychological or emotional benefits of that garden. And down here, it's talking about the cognitive skills. So cognitive skills are really important with senior centers and as well as with rehab centers. And then the sample evaluation for that area, I've given you a sample evaluation that would be, or sample success story that would be good for a rehab center or a detention center, and then a little bit different version for a senior center. And when you look at the local foods success story, I've given you some different situations, whether it be a farm to school activity, whether it's a farmer's market activity, whether it is food processing. So I've given you some different success story scenarios for that area as well. Okay, you don't need that. So at that point, I'll sort of open it up to questions or comments from the chat box.
Thanks, Pam. There's no questions in the chat box. They wanted the link to the plan of work page, so I provided that. But right now, there are no questions in there. So if anybody has any questions, now's your time to ask Pam. Well, Pam, I don't hear any questions. Okay, here we go. Maybe there's one. Okay, so no, there's not that. That's Kevin talking about capturing folks and all that. So I don't hear any, Pam, so thanks a lot for doing this. And everybody on, if you have any questions, Pam's going to be around, even though she's going to retire. We're going to keep her for a little while so that she can help this process as it goes forward. We appreciate that. So if you have any questions, let her know or ask myself and I can answer it, or I can get the answer for you. So we appreciate everybody being on the call today. And Pam, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, everybody have a good rest of the day.